Welcome to the Intertribal Agriculture Council's National Webinar Series. Today we're going to be covering the NRCS Regional Conservation Partnership Program. We've got USDA NRCS staff with us to give an overview of the program, and so I'll turn it over to Maggie Rhodes.
Thanks, Dan. RCPP in our second year for FY16 with the APF was released on May 4th by the Secretary, and some have used or went through the process last year, so some of this may be a repeat, but we think we've made some good improvements to the program. We have tried to streamline some of the tools that we have on the web, so if you keep up with the RCPP website, we'll be posting our frequently asked questions, we hope either this week or next. We've updated those. So this is an announcement for program funding for FY16. And RCPP offers new opportunities for partners and NRCS to create high-performing, on-the-ground conservation solutions, leveraging partner contributions using federal resources, harnessing locally driven innovation, and maximizing partner, producer, and landowner participation. We were very excited last year with all the responses we received from partners, both in the beginning, but then those who heard about RCPP after we had already selected and asked back full proposals. So we're hoping the word gets out more and that we can have more partners coming together to work on projects. So RCPP is an innovative approach to investing in natural resources conservation that empowers partnerships to design solutions and deliver specific, measurable results. We're drawing on the local knowledge and resources to accelerate the progress for critical conservation projects, and partners are in the driver's seat with the technical and financial assistance from NRCS. The legislative authority for RCPP is assistance in delivering through the authorities and the rules followed by the programs referred to as the covered programs. We sometimes call them donor programs. That would be the Environmental Quality Incentives Program, EQIP we call it, Conservation Stewardship Program, CSP, Agricultural Conservation Easement Program, ACEP, and Healthy Forest Reserve Program. For the critical conservation areas only, the Watershed Protection and Flood Prevention Act is available. And note that the watershed authorities are not considered a covered program, just EQIP, CSP, ACEP, and Healthy Forest. So the measures of success for RCPP are the environmental successes through solutions, contributions, innovations, and participation. And how we define those? With solutions, we're investing in projects that generate near-term results. So we're hoping for, these are 5-year agreements, we're hoping for quick results within the first couple years, out to 5 years, and the chief can extend 1 year past the 5 years if it's deemed necessary. But we're looking for measurable environmental, economic, and social perspectives. Both the partner and NRCS will be involved in documenting the outcomes of the conservation investment. So we are calling these kind of our 4 pillars on success for RCPP. So solutions is the first. Contributions is leveraging the federal resources to at least double the total investment in conservation. So the Secretary announced last year $1.2 billion with the anticipation of doubling it to $2.4 billion. So last year we talked about some of our talks, we talked about a 1-to-1 or a significant contribution. We do realize that that is not always possible throughout the country, but what partners can bring are their either skills or their knowledge that can be considered a contribution towards the goal of the proposal. So what we are trying to do is double our investment. So it doesn't necessarily mean dollar for dollar because that's not part of it, but we are looking to double our investment through resources that the partners would have. The third pillar is innovation. we're promoting innovative projects that integrate multiple conservation approaches to deliver comprehensive and measurable solutions. So last year we had a number of innovations, but we're hoping this year kind of to step up that we get more innovation, because we know across the country in local areas there is a lot of innovation. We just need to combine the federal NRCS and our partners to have results. The fourth pillar is participation. We're looking at maximizing the number of partners and participants, including those with a proven track record and those new to NRCS, to administer conservation programs, to participate in and contribute to projects. One of the successful proposals in Alaska, the partner is able to go out and do outreach and education about our programs that NRCS doesn't have the resources to do. And within the APF, you'll see the different, on page 21 through 24, you'll see the questions within there of under all these, the 4 pillars that you look at and you try to answer those in your pre-proposal. And Dan, I am focusing on the pre-proposal stage just because that's where we are right now. We plan on doing more with partners who are successful and ask back for full proposals to help them in the next phase. But right now I'm just focusing on pre-proposals. So kind of to sum it up, it's partners being innovative, new ideas, resources, and local expertise to solve problems. Here's a slide. We're on the RCPP for last year, for FY 14-15, because this year we have $225 million. Last year we had $394 million, but it was 2 fiscal years last year. So this year we are just going to have fiscal year 16 funding. So we have projects in every state, including Puerto Rico. This map is also on our website. Every state had at least one. There was only one state that did not have a state proposal, but they had a CCA or a national proposal. So the FY 14-15 tribal partners, we had 5, and these are lead partners. I didn't go into detail on if tribal members and partners were part of a proposal that they weren't the lead. So there were 5 of them that were the lead. There was one in Washington State, the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation Water Quality Habitat Improvement Project. We had the Duck Valley in Nevada Reservation, and I think Dennis is on. I talked to Dennis quite a bit last year as he was working on this proposal. The Hunan Native Forest Land Partnership in Alaska, implementing education outreach conservation practice on tribal land for socially disadvantaged producers in Alaska Tribal Conservation Districts. Of course, it is in Alaska. And the Yakama Nation Yakama on-reservation Lower Yakama Basin Restoration Project in Washington State. So there were other tribal partners who were involved in other proposals, but I just focused on, in the short time we have, for those that were the lead partners. So in the APF, did you want to?
Maggie, I think we may have Dennis on the line. Would we be able to take just a couple of minutes if Dennis is with us to have him share his experience?
Yes, that'd be great.
Dennis,
yes, I'm here. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to participate. Pleased to do it. No, the opportunity that we have here on the reservation, we've got about 12,000 head of livestock, and those livestock were currently watering out of the canals and off the river, and we determined that we needed to do something better because we wanted to begin to pipe a lot of these canals and bring them up into current to modernize them all. And in order to do that, we had to come up with a way of watering the animals, and we submitted an application. Part of it is to upgrade our irrigation system. Part of it is to develop a separate watering system for the stock that live here on the reservation. And the money that we'll be receiving is going to help us to do that. The one thing I might say, I've been fairly successful. I say we is probably the right word. And before coming to work for the folks out here in Duck Valley, I was a former irrigation district manager and served water to 90,000 acres in Idaho of irrigated agriculture. We've been successful in getting numerous grants from the Bureau of Reclamation in the state of Idaho, but one thing that I think that helps a lot is when we've began the writing process, we involve somebody that knows a whole lot about the subject we're trying to write about. Oftentimes, and matter of fact, I've been involved in, I used to serve as director on the Idaho Water Awareness Week, Idaho Water Education Program for youth in Idaho, and one of the things we look for is when those grant applications came in is if the person that is submitting that grant application really knows a lot about the subject. And I've turned to a fellow to help me. I used to work for the state of Idaho Department of Water Resources, and our public information officer, after we both retired, he's been involved in grant writing, and he already knew a lot about the subject that we were submitting this grant for, and I utilized him, and he was great. And you can tell a lot of times when an application comes in if that person truly knows what the subject that they're talking about. So when submitting an application, be sure and get the help of somebody that absolutely understands the water issues that in this particular case that we were dealing with, and that's just one thought that came to mind when I was asked to be part of this. Another thing is being able to have cost participation either through in-kind or coming up with resources to meet your in-kind cost obligation. And I don't know if this is the kind of information that you wanted me to submit, but I know that's always been an issue. When you go for an application, be sure that you might understand it, but the writer that you're selecting to help you get this application put together may not understand, and that's key in any of these grant applications.
Well, that's great, Dennis. Thank you for your perspective on using the program.
Well, it's been good, and we are in the process of submitting another one because the project that we need, we've got a project that is now 90 years old out here, and there's so many ways we can save water, which is precious. We're actually in the middle of a drought, and as most of you probably are, and we've developed just a plan for this year alone to deal with the drought, and you know, as you go into these grant applications, sometimes your thoughts and your ideas and your program might change just a little bit, but it's one of the things that I think is key is having a plan. And we've developed a 5-year plan and hope to be able to take advantage of these resources when they come along, and to help us save what precious water we have and make it go further.
Well, that's great, Dennis. Thank you very much. Maggie, we'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So pulling from the APF, the tribal partners, of course, tribes are eligible partners, and tribal land with applicable land use, agricultural and non-industrial private forest are eligible lands. We encourage the partnership with tribal conservation advisory councils that can help NRCS state conservationists identify state priorities. And that's one thing I want to stress, is to really connect with the NRCS office, to be working with the state conservationists all along while you're working on your pre-proposal write-up. We call it the partnership program because we don't call it a grant. We're talking about a partnership between NRCS and our lead partner. So we want the partners to be talking to the state conservationists. I know last year there were some that were submitted that the state conservationist wasn't always consulted, because that will give you an idea of heading in the right direction, utilizing our covered programs with EQIP and CSP and HFRP. And then the tribal communities and ranking criteria, working with the state conservationists to identify solutions for a successful partnership and prioritizing projects that identify strategies to encourage tribes and tribal producers to participate. So these, I mean, it's a collaborative effort, and to have NRCS by your side working on this is real important. So how RCPP works, we're addressing priority natural resource concerns at a regional or watershed scale project area. The 4 covered programs I mentioned before were ACEP, CSP, EQIP, and HFRP. Now, when we get, well, I'll go over the money in a couple minutes and explain more of that. But NRCS funds in a RCPP project can cover, of course, the financial assistance to the producers to instill conservation practices. So a producer, whether the partner encourages them to go into the office or they're working with them to go in and sign up for financial assistance. Also technical assistance, which NRCS programs, of course, we have technical assistance dollars, but also the partner is entitled, can ask for technical assistance funds. It has to be that you're delivering services to the participants, but partner TA cannot be used for administrative expenses, including indirect costs and outreach expenses. But those partners can use their administrative expenses as a contribution in-kind services to the proposal that you create. And you should have an estimate of all the funds for both NRCS and the partner, because the NRCS and the partner are a partnership. The chief explained this last year when we were going through the full proposals. You know, that NRCS is to sit across the table from the partners and negotiate the financial and technical assistance that NRCS needs to implement the program, but also that the partner needs to implement. And we did have partners bringing financial assistance to the table for NRCS to implement too. And some NRCS roles, particularly in the easements programs, are inherently governmental, and the partner cannot legally complete those. But that's why close coordination with the state conservationists, you'll know what is inherently government and what is not. A few things unique to RCPP is adjustment of terms. As long as it's non-statutory program rules and policies, these can be adjusted. We've had quite a number of the states have the partners asked for whether it's changing the sign-up dates or asking for an interim conservation practice. The partner can work with NRCS, and they come up through the state conservationists up to headquarters to our subject matter experts who review them, and we can change our policy and have waivers and change our rules based through RCPP. And then direct technical assistance. So those are the funding dollars for partners to work out in the communities to implement conservation. These can be done through partnership agreements or an alternative funding arrangement. At the present, we have one alternative funding arrangement in New Mexico. These are an alternative funding arrangement is an eligible multi-state water resource agency or authority who can deliver both technical and financial assistance. So that means the partner goes out and they will do the conservation, they will do the technical assistance to the landowner, and then be reimbursed from NRCS. So they will do all the things that NRCS would do, that we don't have the resources all the time. Adjustments of terms. These are some examples: adjusted gross income, the AGI waivers, payment schedule updates, interim practices, alternative ranking processes, changing payment methods, and then other changes that maybe we haven't even thought of that partners think will be more efficient, because the whole idea behind RCPP is for us to come together as partners and implement conservation in priority areas and watersheds quickly and more efficiently, innovatively, and have solutions. The alternative funding arrangement, the Secretary in RCPP is allowed a total of 20. We just have one right now, but the partner in an alternative funding arrangement would have all the responsibility for delivering technical and financial assistance for implementation of an RCPP project. They'll develop a plan and the associated contractual agreements to install and maintain the conservation practices to address an identified natural resource concern or objective. And they'll provide the technical assistance to assist producers to design and install conservation practices to meet NRCS standards. So the partners may bring those farmers in and they would register in our office, but they also, because NRCS has to ensure that the participants are eligible, and then we also have to track the payments because of payment limitations. And then healthy forests, although we did not get the 7% from the healthy forest, the chief can decide those partners who want to apply and use money through the Healthy Forest Reserve Program can. We took RCPP funding last year and put it towards a number of proposals that wanted to do healthy forests. And it is not limited to areas previously approved for HFRP. But the proposal should identify targeted species, activities benefiting targeted species, and restoration practices proposed for targeted species. And then I mentioned also the Watershed Program Authority. This is only eligible within the critical conservation areas, but it is not eligible for watershed rehab. And it requires a watershed project plan with implementation actions, physically, environmentally, socially, and economically sound plan, and National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, and economic documentation. And it requires a partner who meets a sponsoring local organizational requirement. So if a partner is interested in developing a pre-proposal, it has to be within that critical conservation area, and it still needs to meet the watershed program requirements. The application process for RCPP will again be 2 phases. We'll have the pre-proposal applications. Partners will submit their projects with pre-proposals by July 8th to national headquarters on our RCPP website. We have automated that this year. I had many late nights talking to partners about their proposals. We had a limitation last year of 20 pages per proposal that I did not receive one proposal that was 20 pages. We had anywhere from 50 to 200 pages in proposals. So what we have done is automated it. We have a fillable form on our website. You'll see it's the RCPP website. It is a fillable PDF form. And for pre-proposals, it is pages 1 through 9. It's for pre-proposals. There is a 4,700 carat limit for each of the questions. And the questions are the same as last year. You know, you're describing how the partners are going to do their proposal. But I recommend on pages 12 through 32 is for the full proposal. But I would review that while you're doing your pre-proposal, because you'll see the kind of information if you are asked back to submit a full proposal. You'll want to look at that information to know what you're going to have to apply for and document what you are going to do with your proposal. So again, the pre-proposal will be due July 8th, and NRCS will review and select pre-proposals by September 4th. We have a national review team that will be virtually basically reviewing these and then coming to headquarters for the final recommendations before we recommend them to leadership. And the state-funded proposals will be evaluated at the state level with the state conservationist and his team. Full proposals will be due November 10th, and NRCS will review, and an announcement should be in January 2016. Each application, you need to identify at least one funding pool. You can't have the same proposal and ask to be funded in all 3 funding pools. You can only pick one funding pool, and you must address at least one national resource concern. I have a slide later which talks about those. So the national resource concerns are listed in the APF, as well as there are state natural resource concerns, and then the CCAs have their natural resource concerns. The funding pool, we have reduced that from 20 million down to 10 million. Last year we did not fully fund any proposal at the $20 million level. We found that a lot of smaller proposals were more successful than the larger proposals, but also it was because of the detail and the information that partners supplied. And again, law prohibits partners from using RCPP funds for administrative costs, but those administrative costs can be used as a contribution to the proposal. And then individual producers and landowners are not eligible for RCPP, but individual producers may apply for assistance under RCP once a proposal has been approved. And project areas, I think we had counties, we had multi-states, we had areas, so we had every kind of boundary agricultural land uses. And also with the limited funding and that proposals, we did ask partners to scale back because, they may have asked for $20 million. We asked that you state whether it's scalable within your pre-proposal and full proposal. Meaning, if you said you could do conservation on, 10,000 acres, could you do it on 15,000 acres? And the project area does not have to be contiguous, but boundaries must be described, and projects equally are evaluated regardless of size. It doesn't matter the size. We asked in the pre-proposal that you submit a map or a JPEG picture of a map. In a full proposal, we're going to ask for more geospatial data. So talking about the resources you have on the website, we have the pre-proposal fillable form, pre-proposal data entry and tool instructions, and RCPP application data entry tool. The data entry tool is, last year entities filled out the 424 A and B. This is basically the same information, but it's going to be a fillable form, which we hope, Dennis, this will make it easier for you to fill out. And then we're updating the frequently asked questions. We have examples of the 2014-15 proposals, and then the maps for the CCAs. And we, again, are asking everyone to submit questions and anything they need to the RCPP mailbox at wdc.usda.gov. So to talk about the funding, I should move it along. We got another 100 million of direct RCPP funding, and we will get 7% of the 4 covered programs. So CSP is allocated in acres and not dollars. Again, the funding pools, 35% will go towards the CCAs, 40% will go towards national projects, and 25% will go towards state projects. Here's the funding pool, and some of the publications have been 235 million. That was before sequestration, so we're basing with these presentations on 225 million because we assume that sequestration will occur and we will be reduced about $10 million. The national funding pool, it Priority will be given to multi-state projects in the national funding pool, and the natural resource priorities for 2016 are excess and insufficient water, drought, water quality degradation, soil quality degradation, inadequate habitat for fish and wildlife, and air quality impacts. The state funding pool, each state has its own resource concerns, and a lot of those fall under the national resource concerns. The state conservationists, I don't believe they're going to change many of those resource concerns that are on the website now. The state conservation is to collaborate with the state technical committee as well as tribal members. I'm assuming they are also part of the state technical committee. And then the state conservationists may choose to set priorities and communicate those priorities to partners. However, all proposals must be reviewed and considered based on the established criteria. Again, we strongly, whether it's a national funding pool, a CCA, or a state funding pool, that you work closely with the state conservationists. If it's a multi-state, the state conservation, there will be one lead state conservationist. And then the 8 critical conservation areas, of course, many of our tribal proposals came out of the Colorado River, the Columbia River, and those resource concerns are on our website. And partnership agreements, that's when you're successful and you've been selected for a full proposal, we develop partnership agreements between NRCS and the partner, and that's where you lay out your deliverables, your funding by fiscal year, what you're going to bring to the table, what NRCS is bringing to the table. And these are, if there's no funds going to the partner, then it's an MOU. And if there are funds going to the partner, it's a partnership agreement. Partnership responsibilities are defining the scope of the project, what's going to be accomplished in the projected proposal, conducting outreach and education to eligible producers, assisting landowners and producers with NRCS applications, leveraging financial and technical assistance provided by NRCS and the partners, conducting and providing an assessment of the project costs and conservation, as well as any other agreed to items within the partnership agreement. So the RCPP timeline again is July 8th for pre-proposals. The announcement for those successful pre-proposals will be invited back September 4th. Will be announced September 4th. And then November 10th, full proposals will be due with announcements of full proposal successes January 2016. And then we hope to have those partnership agreements completed by March 2026. So I opened up for any questions.
Maggie, I have a question. Could an application focus on, on multiple projects and multiple priorities as well? Yes.
And some of the strong points we saw last year were the partners bringing together a variety of partners addressing those resources. I would suggest that you not get so thin, so big that you couldn't. You really want to stress clear goals and objectives for that project area. You want to be able to show this is what we're concentrating on, and these are the things we're bringing to the table, and this is how we're going to accomplish it. So some of the strengths that we saw last year was integrating multiple programs to meet the objectives of the proposal, a well-defined selection and targeted area for a project, so that the reviewers, both at the state level and nationally, could really, when they can really see a clear picture of what's going to be addressed. And we did find some of the smaller projects proposals were more detailed than the larger ones. And of course, well-written and documented, like Dennis said, you need to really focus on that. also leveraging the funds for the partners and the significant non-federal financial and technical resources.
Good morning, Dave Montour, Kodiak, Alaska. You mentioned watershed conservation. I'm wondering to the extent that fisheries habitat projects would qualify.
Yeah, they would. I know we approved a bunch of them, and understand that the covered programs like EQIP, you're applying conservation on usually cropland or pasture land, so that then improves the habitat for the fisheries. So it's using and again working with NRCS, so what's eligible, how the programs can be used on the landscape for the eligible land. That's important to have that understanding. I couldn't say whether like fish ladders or that kind of thing was proposed, because I did not get into every proposal that was submitted. We had close to 600 pre-proposals last year. Did that answer your question, sir?
Thank you. Gives me an idea.
Thank you.
Can I speak for a minute? This is Dennis in Duck Valley.
Hey, Dennis.
One of the things we did last year, and this has been real helpful today. We applied for up to $20 million to do numerous projects, and with the money that we were granted, that helped us narrow down and focus on exactly which project we're going to do first. And we've got partners for other projects, and in our next proposal, I think we'll narrow it down to 1 or 2 instead of those 5 different projects that we outlined originally. I think this will be more helpful than what we dealt with last year.
And it's not to restrict that you couldn't do 5 projects. You could, but you want to have a focus. They can't be the same project like in 5 different areas. You want to focus, maybe have a different focus for each of the projects if you do multiple projects. It's sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. It's just we're looking, because and like you said, make sure the person who's assisting you with writing it, kind of they like, I know exactly what I want to say on a piece of paper, but when I hand it to somebody else, they don't know what I'm talking about because they're not as ingrained in the problem and the solutions that they'll see, because you will have a state review team from the state conservationists reviewing state proposals, and then a national team. And our national team brings in technical people from all across the country. We have wildlife people and biologists, engineers, soil conservationists, so watershed people. So we're bringing a whole group of technical experts. So you really want to explain the proposal so that it can show what's going to be, here is our proposal and here are the solutions. That's real important to have that flow. More questions?
Do we have any other questions?
Just
And
send
Dan,
us all the money.
I know. And we are going to, Dan, try to, because it's very difficult for my team of 3 of us to do all the webinars we'd like to do to get the word out there. We are going to try and do some recordings and put them on our website of, like right now we're trying to work on one where we show you going through the data tool, so people who don't have time to either participate in a webinar or a teleconference can go through the recorded webinar and go through it and then talk to us if they need assistance. So we're here a lot. We do the best through the RCPP email. I have somebody who watches that. We don't always have the answers. We As I always tell everybody, we're drinking out of a fire hose all the time up here, so we are answering the questions as fast as possible. But we also, it's harder to catch us on the phone than it is an email. So please talk to us and let us know what we can do to help you.
Great. And if anyone who's on the webinar who doesn't have phone access, if you have a question, feel free to put it into the chat box on the screen. I did in that chat box. I just put the link to the program website. It might be easier if you just Google it. It's kind of a long web address, but you can go there to find more information on the program. And I think Maggie, they should be able to find any webinars and related information on that website, right?
Yes.
Great. I think we might have one question coming in on the chat box. While we wait for that question, I do just want to mention that our next webinar in the IAC webinar series is on the USDA Value-Added Producer Grant. That's going to be June 4th. It'll be next Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And that webinar, on the Value-Added Producer Grant is going to talk about how you can use that grant, that program, for providing funding for doing a planning grant, for feasibility study and business plans, or for working capital for an implementation grant. And we've got a question for a copy of the PowerPoint. This entire webinar is going to be available on the Indian Ag YouTube channel. That's Indian Ag just type in Indian Ag on YouTube, or you can go to our website and we'll have a link for it there. And I'm typing in my email address. If you want me to email you a copy of this presentation, just send me an email and I'll get you a copy of it. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, this is Elvita with the Walk River Paiute Tribe. Sorry, I apparently couldn't get on the other thing, so I just got on the phone. But why don't you can you just give me your email address again?
Yeah, my email address is dan@indianaglink.com.
So should we email you any of our questions on this program?
Well, you can either email them to me or you can email them straight to the RCPP program staff. We'll be able to get you a more detailed answer.
Okay, what's that email address? RCCP? RCPP, or what is it?
Yes, rcpp@wdc.usda.gov.
At wdc.usda.gov.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And then also keep in mind we have Intertribal Agriculture Council, our technical assistance network, we've got technical assistance specialists in all of the regions across the country, so we can help to to get you some answers, to connect you in with the USDA staff. IndianAgLink.com is our website, so you can find more information there on contacting the right people, or feel free to send me an email as well.
Okay.
Okay, well, Maggie, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, do we have another question?
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing. I know we're talking about RCPP, but also the Bureau of Reclamation has Native American funds that really go unused through their WaterSmart program. I'd encourage you to also access those resources if anyone is interested. And it's strictly targeted around agriculture water.
Great,
That's
thank
the
you.
Bureau of Reclamation, WaterSmart.
Okay, well, we'll conclude the webinar. Again, I want to thank Maggie Rhodes from NRCS for giving a great presentation today. And please, if you're interested in Value-Added Producer Grant, get on the webinar next week, and feel free to send us any suggestions for additional webinars in the future. We try to cover them as the different programs come out, and we'll be working ahead on some of the other, especially NRCS programs in the near future as well. That concludes today's webinar. Thank you for joining us.